Alrighty, everybody. We're gonna get started in just a second. Just had to get some things set up in the background end of things. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna really talk about some very interesting things, of course, with the CBA agreement, as you can see on my screen. We're gonna talk about the implications of that CBA agreement. Sorry if the camera is shaking just a little bit. Ooh, I don't mean to kill that. We're gonna talk a little bit about the CBA ramifications. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs. I kind of want to talk about the Sacramento Kings just a little bit because I know that is one of my friend's favorite teams right now. And they are playing some great basketball at the current moment. And, of course, a couple games back from the second seed. I know they're the third seed, but it's impressive nonetheless to see that, a team that, a lot of us didn't really expect very much of. And I'll be the first one to say, we didn't expect very much, at least I didn't expect very much from the Sacramento Kings, but as you can clearly see, they're playing some really good basketball. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch them in the playoffs and see what they can do, especially with Domantas Sabonis, kind of leading the charge along with De'Aaron Fox, and Kevin Huerter having a resurgence. Not saying that he was a bad player in Atlanta, but definitely not used to the way that he is in Sacramento, and he's clearly one of those players that should be on the most improved player list. Not sure if he should win it, but definitely most improved player for me. Just a guy that, again, came off the bench or was a starter for the Atlanta Hawks, but didn't really see too much in him. But he clearly has stepped up in the matter of just a couple months or, whatever, since he got traded there or signed there. And, it's an amazing thing to see. So I hope everybody is watching that, and we'll get started relatively soon. Let's see here. Let me just make sure we're live on Kick. Again, I'm trying to get Kick to work. If anybody out there is a Kick expert, let me know what you guys are doing for that, because I've been trying to get this stream on here for months on end. And for some reason it is, typo on the title. Oh shoot. All right. Hey, thanks for the heads up there. Let me edit that. Oh, drunk. That is a great catch. That is a great catch. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. All right. Thank God I did not. Hopefully that went away a little bit. Maybe we'll get more people to come on the stream. I don't know. Definitely did not mean to do a little clickbait there, but drunk, thank you again for letting me know about that typo. All right. So without further ado, yeah, drunk. I don't know do you know a little bit about Kick? I'm trying to get Kick to work. I need to do a little bit more research. I've been a little lazy in that sense. Kind of spending most of my time doing more basketball stuff, coaching stuff, that is. And so I need to do a little bit more research, because I thought I had everything set up on my Kick, but apparently it's not working the way I wanted to. So I need to work on that probably in the next couple of days, because we're going to be going on break relatively soon for my job. Where I have a week off to kind of do what I need to. So I want to get that going and really start streaming there as well, because I feel like that's going to be a better platform than Twitch. Twitch, I feel like I don't know, for some reason, I just can't get Twitch to be the streaming service that I want it to be for NBA podcasting and stuff like that. So I've kind of wanted to go to Kick, because I feel like Kick could be a brand new start for an avenue that we're trying to go down, Pete and I. And unfortunately, Pete's not going to be here today. I did ask him, obviously a little bit too late. And so he was obviously busy. And so, okay, you're on the phone. I gotcha. And so I do apologize that Pete's not going to be on today, but he will be on sometime this week. And of course, next week we will have him on for sure. And so, be on the lookout for both of us being on the stream, and even just recording some videos here and there. I think that might be better for scheduling wise for him and myself included. We're both going to have some hectic weeks coming up. So, we're going to get started. Obviously, I'm going to go on break, but I want to do a little bit more deep dives into some things. But nevertheless, you're not here to talk about my life. That's not what this podcast is about. We're here to talk about the NBA news and rumors, and also basketball opinions. So again, I hope you guys are enjoying your Sunday afternoon. I know there's some NBA games on right now. I know the women's national championship is on in a little bit. And of course, we want to see Caitlin Clark dominate and win a championship for her squad. But without further ado, let's get right into the stream. So, as you guys can see on my screen, we know that the NBA has elected and has a new CBA agreement. We know that this is something that came about a couple days ago. And here is kind of what we're going to talk about. But before we do, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, all that stuff helps out the charge tremendously as we move forward in this channel, in this revenue, in this avenue of trying to figure out the NBA PA, figure out, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And I think that this is going to be a very interesting story and thing to talk about. So let's get started with the first thing. The NBA and NBA PA agreed to a 7-year collective bargaining agreement. The NBA and the National Basketball Players Association agreed to a new 7-year collective bargaining agreement on Friday, reported by Adrian Wojnarowski. The deal will start next season and includes a mutual opt-out after the 6th year, which is, of course, standard in any league, especially with the NBA. They've had that just this past one. The agreement includes several key new details, including a creation of a second salary cap apron of $17.5 million over the tax line, where no teams will no longer have access to tax mid-level players in the free agency. So, for example, a guy like Donte DiVincenzo would not be able to sign for the Golden State Warriors. A player like Danilo Gallinari would not be able to sign for the Boston Celtics. Just as two prime examples of teams that are over the salary cap, are way over that threshold. And there's obviously going to be a lot more ramifications, especially in that when it comes to trading. I know that there's not going to be any more cash trades. There's not going to be any more first round pick trades if you are over that second tier of over the salary cap. This deal will also have large trades exceptions as a way to create more spending and trading opportunity for middle and lower spending teams. The new CBA will also will have add a mandatory games of 65 games played, which conditions in order to be eligible for postseason awards. We'll talk a little bit about that one because I feel like that one could also have some ramifications as well. We know that there's going to be a new in-season tournament, which will start next season and includes pool play games baked into the regular season schedule. I think from all the math, I think there's going to be 2 teams that potentially could play 83 games. So we'll see what happens, especially when it comes to stats and things like that. I know that's going to be a huge talking point in the NBA. The prize money for the championship team will be $500,000 per player, which again, if you're a kind of low tier to mid tier type of player, that's a pretty good significant amount of change if you think about it. And so that could also be something that could be very interesting. We know that marijuana has been removed from the drug testing program. It's about time for that because I just think that with the way that things are getting going, I just think that that's kind of a silly nonsense thing. And now we can finally get rid of that. We also know that the two sides have also agreed to an increase in the upper limit on extensions from 120 to 140%. There will be an agreement to add a third two-way contract slot on team rosters. Both the owners and the players are expected to ratify this contract. But let's really look at kind of the big thing, and that's, of course, this one to me, that teams will no longer have the ability to pay the mid-level exception for players. So again, under these changes, like I talked about, guys like Donte DiVincenzo, Joe Ingles, Danilo Gallinari, and John Wall would not have been able to sign this summer. I think that this is kind of a way to stop the mega teams from adding players that could potentially make some big impacts. Like if we look at guys like Donte DiVincenzo and Joe Ingles, those are 2 guys that can make a huge impact for both the Golden State Warriors and the Milwaukee Bucks in a way that they don't have to spend a ton of money and they can get away with some of the things that they're doing. Again, I know that what they're trying to do is kind of curtail the dynasties, curtail teams from adding like an exceptional player that teams decide just to cut because they're trying to save costs. And, of course, some teams are trying to tank. And so they're going to get rid of some veteran presence there, going to let them sign for whoever. But we'll see what happens here. I think that this is going to be a situation where it's going to force the lower tier teams and the mid tier teams. So teams like the Detroit Pistons, teams like the Houston Rockets. I'm trying to think of other teams as well. They're trying to force them to spend money. Oklahoma City Thunder, another team, again, they built through the draft. I get that. But in terms of like spending on free agency, they're one of the cheapest teams in the league. And I just think that that's kind of what they're trying to go for here, is they're trying to encourage teams to spend money. Because I think the issue that we're having here now is that, and again, teams are willing to spend the money. Everyone has the same salary cap, but at the same time, teams are not willing to spend the money if they know they're not going to be in a championship race or opportunity. And I think that does kind of suck, especially for teams that are so below average. So teams like, again, the Houston Rockets are a prime example for me as a team that I think could potentially use players to be in the roster to help them out, because I know they're trying to go young. They're doing that so they can build some experience for those young guys, but really they're trying to tank for Victor Wembanyama or whoever else they're trying to get in this draft, the Amar Thompsons of the world, or Scoot Henderson, or any of these, Brandon Miller, the kid from Alabama. They're obviously trying to curtail that side of the things, because we know that these teams would not spend the money if it means that they're gonna add wins to their roster, right? Like, the reason why they got rid of John Wall in the first place is because they wanted to add wins to their they want to lose wins to their tally, and they just don't want that veteran leadership and experience, because we all know that veteran players will win games, whereas rookie players and players that have not as many experience as a guy like John Wall would definitely make them win more games that they shouldn't. Now, again, with all the situation going on in Houston, that's another thing that I want to talk about next week. We obviously want to talk more about the Silas situation, because I do think that it's a little crazy thinking about that. But we'll look into that just a little bit later next week. But yeah, I think that this is a good thing. Again, I want teams to spend money on players. Like, I don't want a guy like Donte DiVincenzo, a guy like Joe Ingles, or even Gallinari or John Wall to go on teams that they could make an impact on right away in terms of a championship, right? Because they're going to sign the mid-level exception. I know that DeMar DeRozan was close to doing that for the LA Lakers, but I'm kind of glad he didn't, because now he made a lot more money with the Chicago Bulls, which obviously is something that, we want to see these players play on teams that they should be, right? Like, I think that's the tiring thing about the NBA, is that, Donte DiVincenzo should be given a second chance on a team where they could use his assets. Thinking about guys like Joe Ingles. Like, again, I know that in Utah, he was a third player on the team, fourth player, played really well. But I do think that this is going to add some competition, because if we look at the NBA standings, to me, like, I think teams like the Hornets, the Magic, the Pacers, the Wizards, maybe not the Wizards because they just are a dysfunctional organization themselves. But even teams like the Jazz could still use him. The Trailblazers could have had him on the team. The Mavericks could definitely use him, especially as they're trying to get into the playoffs. It just adds a little bit more to the team rather than what we're seeing now, which is just, I feel like, mediocrity. I feel like right now the NBA, in terms of the way that the salary cap system is set up, obviously I think the Warriors owner wants to spend as much money as they can. They want to win more championships, and I get that. But I do think that this will level out the competition for everybody, because in order for these big teams to shake up things, they can't get rid of their core players. So, like, I'm thinking of the Golden State Warriors, for example. Draymond, Curry, Thompson, and one of the centers like Festus Ezeli or Kevon Looney. Like, those guys, like, those are some players that have kind of stayed on the team for a very long time. And especially this year with Andrew Wiggins missing, Donte DiVincenzo has kind of been filling that void. He's having one of his best seasons as of yet. We all know that he's shooting way above his average in terms of 3-point percentage. And when that's the case, and when I see that, it clearly shows you that you don't need to spend the 20 to 13 to 25 million on these players that will marginally get you better. Like, you can just even bring in a guy like DiVincenzo, a guy like Joe Ingles. Gallinari, before he got hurt, probably would have been a huge signing for the Boston Celtics. And John Wall did a little bit, but Russell Westbrook is now that person for them. It definitely does help shake up the rosters a little bit. I know that Miami Heat did that years back when they brought in Mike Miller and other players like that to help them, develop what they need in order to win championships and to be competitive. Again, like, when I look at rosters and when I look at the situation at hand, the Milwaukee Bucks, I don't think they would be at the record that they are if they didn't shake up their roster a little bit. Same thing with the Boston Celtics. Same thing with the Denver Nuggets. I know the Warriors, they're hit or miss here and there. I know this year they're not as strong as they used to be, but that definitely does play an advantage to where they could survive a little bit without Andrew Wiggins, who had to deal with some personal issues, and let them have a guy that was shooting very well that can take advantage of their mismatch. And that's something that I want to really kind of look at, because I do think that this does allow these dynasty teams to kind of stay relevant, refresh, even with just minor changes. And so I think any way to kind of curtail that and to let the bottom teams to stop not spending money. And that's something that really frustrates me about the NBA in terms of the lower tier teams. Teams that are willing to tank because they know that they're going to get a generational talented player. I get it. I understand it's part of the game. You want to get the best position possible so you can get that player. But to me, when you look at a team like the Pistons, when you look at a team like the Houston Rockets, the Hornets, the Magic maybe not so much, because I do think they have an exciting roster. But I'm really thinking about some of these teams like the Wizards. Like, they need to start. I know that the Wizards did spend money on the Bradley Beal contract, but they need to start spending a little bit more so they can get some of these guys on their team. And that's something that I want to see from the Pistons and the Hornets and the Rockets and the Spurs. I know the Spurs are also tanking. Like, everybody's trying to tank for Victor Wembanyama, and rightly so. He's a very talented player. He's a special player. But it's about time that these teams, they have to start spending money. Like, they can no longer just hide under the mask of, well, we're trying to tank, so we're going to sign like some players that, we may or may not want. And again, I do think it's frustrating if you're one of these teams that, again, I just think for me, it's going to really force teams to start spending more money, and trading opportunities and things like that. Like, it's about time that these teams spend money, because like I said, they're tanking for a reason. They want certain players. And so I'm sick of it. But let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of, this salary cap apron that they've decided to add, to the, NBA? Or do you like it? Do you dislike it? Let me know in the comment section down below. All right, let's move on to kind of two new things, and that is within this CBA agreement. We also have a very interesting thing, and that is, of course, going to be the all NBA teams are going to be positionless in the new CBA. So starting next year, it's no longer going to be a center, forwards, and guards. It is now going to be positionless. And this is going to be a very interesting situation to see, because what this is going to do for guys, I'm thinking of guys like Gobert, is that I think it's going to leave them irrelevant in this conversation of all NBA. We look at this, that the all NBA teams will be positionless as part of the new collective bargaining agreement. The all NBA teams now will be represented the top 15 players in the league, as opposed to having position distinction. Caleb Aries, how you doing, man? Is a more fair system, even though it historically ends the aspect of the award. I think the frustrating thing about this is I do think that it's going to curtail some of us viewing centers in this light. Like, I think Jokic and Embiid are kind of the exception to the rule. I'm thinking of guys like Rudy Gobert. I'm thinking of guys like Evan Mobley. I think those guys have potential opportunities to be all NBA players. And again, if your points, if you're rebounding, if your defense, all of that adds up by the end of it, then yeah, I think it does lend itself to say, like, yeah, they're going to have opportunities to win the award. They just have to play really well. And that's kind of the thing, that it's a give and take type of deal, because now guys like Jaylen Brown won't be missing an all-NBA team just because now we have to vote in a center. Or players that were on the cusp of it, they get, kicked out or booted out because they have to put in a center. So I do agree in that sense. And that's going to be a very interesting thing, especially when you think about contracts in the future. I want to know if they're going to still continue to add that all NBA stipulation on there. I wonder if there's going to be like an all NBA positions team and an all NBA non-positions team. Again, I understand you're trying to, I'm creating like random rules just to, appease these players. But, I'm really thinking about guys like Rudy Gobert, and, again, not that saying that Rudy Gobert is a great player or a bad player, but what I do think it does is that it doesn't allow them to make the money that they're looking for, right? Because, players have to hit certain stipulations in order to get, big contracts. Like, I'm thinking of guys like Jaylen Brown. If he hits this all NBA stipulation, he's going to make a lot more money than if he doesn't. And so I want to see centers have an opportunity for that. And I think there does need to be an NBA rule change in terms of goaltending. I would love them to adopt the FIBA rule. I'm not sure if that would ever happen. I'm curious to see why they wouldn't want that to happen. Because I do think that, again, I think that by adding that, it would definitely help the game. It would make centers more viable. And again, as a short king myself, I get it. Like, helping the guards, helping the smaller players, it's perfect. But I do think we need to help out the bigger players because, the game is no longer about posting up and getting post paint touches. Like, yeah, you will occasionally have that. But I think the game is more spread out. It's more, let's catch it at the nail or the free throw line on the side, left and right, and you're trying to create some actions and stuff for the guards to go and attack. And again, provide cutting, provide ghost screens, provide popping for the bigs instead of rolling them to the basket all the time. It changes the game tremendously because now bigs have to play a totally different role than they did 20 to 30 years ago. And I know that people who aren't familiar with the game that it once was and are now introduced to this new NBA where a lot of people are not going to be alive to remember the LeBron James Miami Heat days now, which is kind of crazy to think. For kids going into high school and stuff like that. Like, to me, that's a little bit crazy to think about. But I know that this is a tangent on centers and how to make them viable once again. I just think that rule would make them viable, and it's about time to make them viable because I do, like I said, I personally love seeing the center position being used in many different ways, like the way that it's being used in this current day and age. I think it's going to be a hybrid. I want to see the hybrids out there. Like, I don't want to see the post paint touches get taken away. I do think that they does have a value in this game. But at the same time, I do want to see a lot more. Excuse me. I want to see more of them being used in defensively. Use their height to their advantage. Again, I'm not saying if it's going in right away to like bat it out. But if it's on the cylinder, like, let them be able to bat it away. Let them be usable in the NBA because, again, I just think it provides a good opportunity for players that probably would never likely get these big contracts. Like, maybe the stipulation is ball swatted away from the rim could be a stat that could potentially make them more money in the upcoming free agency, especially if we're going to take away and again, I know the centers are probably going to be Jokic and Embiid anyway, and they're probably going to be in the All NBA conversation anyways. But at the same time, I'm thinking of guys like Evan Mobley. Like, I'm hoping that I know that his numbers aren't going to be the most eye-popping numbers, especially offensively for what I think the NBA beat writers and people that cover the NBA. It's not going to be to their liking and their standard. But it does provide them opportunity to like be noticeable, be brought into the mix. So I'm curious to see how they handle that conversation. Because I think it's going to be a very interesting thing to talk about moving forward. And the other thing too is also going to be this. Let me see if I can find. We'll talk about the NBA in contract. I'm trying to find the. Let's see here. Oh, the MVP, the awards. So I know it's not on the screen, but according to Shams and Wojnarowski, you are now going to have to play 65 games in order for in order to be in the running for conversation of awards, right? So we're thinking like MVP, defensive player, most improved, all that stuff. I love the idea of that. I do think that there needs to be some sort of stipulation to that. I know that they probably did some numbers and figured out that the average, games that players miss is about like 80. They play about 80% of the games. If you're a superstar, a player that is durable, you're going to be playing about 80 plus games or 80% of your season. My one concern and issue, and hopefully they talked about it in the CBA agreement, is going to be what happens to players that kind of do the whole, I'm going to check in for like a minute, I made my appearance, and then as soon as the ball goes out of bounds or you turn it over, then you're out, and then that counts as a game. That is going to be a slippery slope that I hope that players and organizations don't take advantage of, because I think what this is going to encourage, if that is the case, it's going to encourage a lot of players to just, make an appearance, say hi to everybody on the court when they tip off, and then as soon as the ball goes out of bounds or you play a minute, then it's like, okay, I'm subbing out. See ya. That is going to be a very that would, to me, would be a very frustrating situation, because players that play the game a very long time, players that actually put in the work and put in the times and the minutes logged in to a game, I would be insulted if that was the case. But I'm hoping that the NBA kind of deals with that, because I'm thinking of, I think of players that, may just want to make an appearance, like guys like Kawhi Leonard for me. Like, I know that maybe he would do it. But you show your head for a minute and then you're out. So I'm hoping that there's a minute stipulation along with the games played. Like, maybe you have to average this amount of minutes in order to be eligible for the award. Because like I said, I think it's unfair if all you have to do is just show your head, say hi, and then you go to the bench and that counts as your game for one of your 65 games. Again, I'm all fine for these teams, on a back-to-back, or players that want to rest. Like, let them rest, let them have their thing. But don't be one of these guys that just shows up and then dips out. Because I think that would be unfair to NBA players, NBA people that watch the game. Because I do think that that's going to cause a rift in the NBA, especially between the players. Like, if you're only showing your head for a minute and then not playing. Like, I understand that's going to affect your averages. Excuse me. It's going to affect your averages. It's going to affect a lot of different things. So maybe that'll help in the stipulation. But again, it'll be very interesting to see how they deal with that, because I do think that that's one of my questions coming out of the whole CBA agreement moving forward. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about that? And really the other thing as well, we're going to talk about the in-season tournament in a separate part of the video. I'm trying to see what was the other thing I was going to talk about. I think that's really it. In terms of just like the two things we talked about, the position list in basketball for the awards, and also how many games you have to play. I know that there's a new TV deal coming out, so that's also going to be a very interesting thing to talk about. I know YouTube TV is going to be part of the conversation now. I'm curious to see if NBA TV will be part of YouTube TV, or will be part of Apple TV in some sort of deal to make them more money. I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to look at and see moving forward. So again, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about this whole rule change and things like that. Okay. Before we continue going, let me read some comments here. Caleb, you said LeBron James is the GOAT. I do agree. James, what's up, James? How you doing, man? The Kings are a first-round exit, respectively. Ooh, that's not going to make my friend Sean very happy, James. So I hope you're ready for that, for the retribution that's going to happen to you. We'll talk about them in a little bit, which kind of leads us to the next topic we're actually going to talk about. And that's, of course, moving on to the in-season tournament. It got approved. Adam Silver has been asking for it. He's been watching European soccer. He's been watching the FA Cup. He's been watching the Carabao Cup. He's been watching these cups all over Europe. And I hope that European teams will be involved in this. I'm hoping that there's some sort of way to get them involved, because I would love to see the style and clashes of European basketball versus NBA basketball. I know there's some similarities, but I would love to see that. They would have to ratify some of the rules, and like, what rules would they play under? Would they play under NBA? Would they play under FIBA? And this is where I would love to see a mixture of some of those rules, like I was talking about with the goaltending rule. Get rid of it. The only way that it should be a goaltend is if it's going into the basket. You're able to you're not able to touch it, but if it's on the rim, kind of just like circling, things like that, you're able to like swat it out. But again, onto this in-season tournament. The NBA and the NBA-PA have agreed to play in an in-season tournament under the next collective bargaining agreement, and will be playing as early as next season. The event will be include pool play games as part of a regular season starting November, with 8 teams advancing to a single elimination tournament in December. The final 4 of the tournament will be held at a neutral site, possibly Las Vegas. Each in-season tournament game will be counted towards the regular season. And like I said, we know that the 2 teams are going to be in the championship game are going to play an 83rd game. So they're going to play 1 extra game. And of course, winning this will will give every, I think, player and coaches $500,000 if you win the whole thing. Um, I know that there's going to be a lot of pushback on this one. I know fans are not really particularly happy about this one just because it's like, oh, it's an in-season tournament. It doesn't really mean very much and things like that. But what I will say, like, I understand it's not the NBA finals, it's not the NBA championship. We get it. It's not supposed to be that. But I do think it just adds some spice into the regular season that I don't think a lot of people would really anticipate moving forward. Like, my thing that I want to make sure is like, how the scheduling is going to work out, because are these teams going to lose a game? What's going to be going on there? So I need to really do a little bit more of my research into it. But nevertheless, I do think that this is a good opportunity, maybe for these lower tier teams to show that, like, hey, yeah, we're tanking, but we can show you that we're serious about winning. So I'm thinking about teams like the Orlando Magic. Yeah, they may not be a good regular season team, but maybe they could be a good postseason team. Maybe they could play in the in-season tournament, win that $500,000. I would love to see a little bit more of that from these lower tier teams, because I think it does add some things to it. Jack Pine, we'll talk about you in a little bit. But yeah, I do think that that's going to be a fun thing to watch moving forward. And so I do want to see the league continue with this. I know that players may or may not be interested in it. I understand it's not the most extravagant thing. I understand that people would not like it, but let's be real here. Any time that you're in a situation where it's a single elimination situation, I think they're going to be some competitive people in it. So I hope, for everyone's sake, that they buy into it. Again, I know that there's going to be fans that are going to be upset about it. There's going to be people that don't like it. But I do think that it does add an exciting element to the league. Again, no one really cares about the November games. No one cares about the October games. Like, we understand the NBA starts in October, but no one's really paying attention to the NBA until Christmas time. And so let's make a little bit of excitement. Let's add something to it. I'm tired of people not really buying into the NBA until December or January, even now. Like, that now is like the time when people are buying into the NBA or the All-Star weekend. There needs to be something that leads to teams being excited about some in-season tournaments. Now, what I would like to see from the in-season tournaments is playing against some of these European teams. I want to see the style of clashes go on against each other, because the only time we ever see style of clashes really go on is the Olympics, is the FIBA World Cup, places where it's international basketball and not really like club teams. For me, an example would be the Champions League. Like a Liverpool playing a Real Madrid, or a Man City playing Bayern Munich. Like, I want to see that type of situation in the NBA. Let's let the Orlando Magic, let's let the lower tier teams play against some of these European giants and see if they can compete against each other. I think that it would be a lot better if that was the case than what we see now, which is these teams just beating up on each other and not really having it matter. And so, I would love to see a little bit more of that cross branding. Maybe there's some sort of Champions League thing where, maybe the top 4 NBA teams, or maybe that would be unfair, but some sort of way where we can get some of these European giant teams to play against some of the American teams. Because what I'm tired of seeing is just no sense of international brand presence in the NBA besides the players. Like, I understand the players are everything, guys like Giannis, guys like Jokic, but let's let the teams that they used to play for compete against NBA teams. I would love to see that. And so I'm hoping that that's kind of what we're seeing moving forward. And so I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that situation. I'm tired of the whole European teams getting disrespected. Again, I'm not like a European team apologist, but what I would love to see is more competition and a little bit more pride with these lower tier teams, the teams that are not trying to win and trying to tank. I understand that this is an American brand, and think of FIFA, and the way it's international, the way that the Premier League, the way that the La Liga, Liga NOS, and these other leagues that are again under the FIFA federations, UEFA, all that stuff. I understand that part of it, But I would love to see a little bit more of some international cross branding. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys make of all this whole situation? I would love to know if you're a fan of the in-season tournament. Are you not? Let me know in the comment section down below, because I feel like I'm a fan. I know that there's going to be a lot of fans that are not going to be. Like I'm pretty sure that I could see Pete not being a fan of it. I could definitely see Brad not being a fan of it. But I do think it's fun and exciting. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys make of the in-season tournament? All right, let's read some couple comments here. Let's take a look before we move on to our next story. So the first thing we're gonna read is Jack, you saying Celtics are a first round exit. That's a joke. They're not gonna be a first round exit. They're definitely going to the NBA finals. Sorry about it. And Arsenal on top. Yeah, it's looking like it. Hopefully Man City isn't coming breathing down your neck. Moving I'm trying to think of the words to say, but hopefully they're not. Hopefully they're not gonna sneak up behind you and take your position away. So keep winning. I think there's only a couple more games. There's like a month left of the season, right? So hopefully you guys continue to win. Because I'm tired of seeing Man City win all the trophies and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys can continue your dominant form. All right, let's move on to the final topic of today, and that is of course going to be talking about the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings have, I believe, just one game left. I think this is the last game, if I'm not mistaken. Are we really in the last game? That's crazy. No. We still have another week. My bad. But we're gonna be entering a very, very interesting time in the NBA as teams are looking to make a push, and the Sacramento Kings are going to be a team that's looking to make a push for second place. We know that the Grizzlies got Ja Morant back, and they were faltering without him. But the Sacramento Kings are right on their tail. I believe they're 2 games back of the Grizzlies, and this is going to be a fun team to watch, because I do think that this is going to be something that's going to be very interesting to see. So if we look at kind of the roster of the Sacramento Kings, let me pull up their roster really quick. We can go to their official page. Let's go to the team. We can go to the roster. Again, I do think that they have a team that potentially could be a surprise in the NBA. Like if we look at kind of the NBA standings, they would potentially be playing, I believe, the Clippers at this point. And we know that the Clippers are hit or miss. We know that the Clippers are a team that could be really good. I know that they're going to be missing Paul George due to an unfortunate injury. Hopefully he's recovering very well. Again, the Clippers are a much better team when they're all playing together. And I want to see that just for the sake of competitiveness. But the Sacramento Kings, I think, are going to be a team that could surprise some people. I know that, James, you're not a big fan of them, and you think that they're not going to be moving forward, and they're going to be a first-round exit. But it's all about the matchups, right? So for me, what the Kings can't do is get the Golden State Warriors. that to me is going to be the one thing that, if there's going to be any first-round exit chance, it could be against the Golden State Warriors. Not because I don't think the Kings have the talent to beat them. It's just the Warriors have that veteran experience, and we know that with veteran experience, teams tend to perform better. And so I don't want to see them play them. I would love to see them play the Clippers or the Pelicans, because I do think that they match up a little bit better with those teams, or even the Phoenix Suns if they fall out a little bit. But man, it is going to be a very interesting NBA playoffs. Again, I love the roster that they have. Let's kind of look at the team and look at the stats really quick. Like I said, I do think that what were the stats? Team stats. No, I don't want team stats. I want no. What do I want? Player stats. Here we go. Like, if we kind of look at, where is my guy? Keegan Murray's playing really well, by the way. I love his game. I think he's going to be very solid. I know that he's kind of like a late bloomer, so I hope that he continues to develop very well. Sabonis obviously playing tremendously. But again, let's move to where Kevin Huerter is. 15 points a game, averaging, I believe, 41% from 3, shoots about 7 threes a game. Like, this guy is playing very well. And he's a guy that is definitely going to be moving forward one of the top, one of those guys that could be in the running for sixth man of the year, or even to me most improved player. Again, he's going to be a guy that I think about those old Sacramento Kings teams with Jason Williams, with White Chocolate, with Mike Bibby, Chris Webber, and all those guys, like, and Vlade Divac. Like, those were some really tough teams that I felt like got cheated in that Laker playoff series. But nevertheless, I do think that it's going to be a very interesting situation to continue to watch and monitor, because I do think that the Sacramento Kings have the ability and have the chance, with the way they're shooting the basketball right now. Man, it, to me, like, I don't know how you can't root for the Kings right now. Like, they're just a team that plays with tremendous fire, with tremendous passion. Let me just go to team rankings right now. Man, they just don't want me to use this. I guess we go to StatMuse, right? Oops. Do apologize for not having this all set up. And if we kind of look at, again, the stats, like, offensively, they do a pretty good job, right? You know, they're fifth in 3-pointers made, seventh in attempts, eighth in total, third in free. Like, they're getting to the line very well. The free throw percentage is in top 10. Again, assists is fourth. Like, they're scoring the most points in the NBA. Like, how can you not say that they're a team that could potentially do some damage? Again, their defense is not very great, but I do think that offensively they could definitely get carried away, or they can carry a team to a victory. And so I'm hoping the Sacramento Kings can continue to make some noise in the NBA playoffs. You know, I haven't really paid attention to their play sets and stuff like that, so I'm not really sure what Mike Brown is running currently. But let me do a little bit more research into that, and kind of let you know what type of system he's running for the Sacramento Kings. But whatever he's doing, it's definitely a lot different than his LeBron James Cleveland days, where he was like the defensive guru, or even the defensive guru for the Golden State Warriors. Like, he is a completely offensive focused coach now. Like, defensive stuff is, you know, not the best. But at the same time, you know, it's necessarily not the worst, right? It's tough. It's getting there. It's close. But I do think that they do a pretty good job, rebounding wise and things like that. And so, that is kind of be it, I believe, for today. Let me know what you guys think of the Sacramento Kings. I know it wasn't too much of a deep dive today, but what I will say the Sacramento Kings have, that I think a lot of teams don't, is they have players that seem to be forgotten about. I would say, like, players that people, like, guys like Sabonis are a perfect example. Guys like De'Aaron Fox, Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, like, those were guys that a lot of people kind of stepped to the side and said, nah, they're not really going to fit into any system. They're not really going to do things for you. But they're proving everybody wrong. I was one of those guys they proved wrong. So I'll definitely eat crow when it comes to the Sacramento Kings. Again, Kevin Huerter having a tremendous resurgence in his career. Harrison Barnes playing solid as usual. De'Aaron Fox definitely doing a lot of great things. And so to me, that is one of those things that I want to continue to monitor, is the Sacramento Kings, and the players that they brought in. Again, I know I was upset when Tyrese Halliburton got traded. I was visibly frustrated with them, but I am excited to see how the Kings move forward from here on out. It'll be a fun thing to watch. I'm curious to see what you guys think in the comment section down below. Are you guys a fan of the Kings, or do you think the Kings are for real, or do you think they're just hype? In this hype train that we know as the NBA when it comes to the NBA standings. Again, third in the West, impressive. I know that the West is not as good as it once was, but man, it is a competitive scene right now. It's anybody's ball game. Who's gonna take the top? Who's gonna be at the bottom? That is for us to find out for this final week of the NBA. So Pete and I will be on next week to maybe do our NBA awards show, talk about who should win these awards. But With that being said, thank you once again for joining us here on The Charge. Give you the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, all that stuff helps us out tremendously and lets us know that you want to watch us talk about basketball and continue to preach and really talk about things that are going on in the NBA, FIBA, club basketball in Europe, and also NCAA as we are here. Where's the playoff experience, BMAC? That's a fair question as we sign off here. It's not there, I would say. Like, I think maybe Sabonis. I think Sabonis has been to the playoffs before, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's played in the playoffs, so there is a little bit of experience with him there. Harrison Barnes is a NBA champion with the Golden State Warriors, so there's experience there as well. Malik Monk has some playoff experience. Matthew Dellavedova, NBA champion. Come on, James. Like, that's some playoff experience right there. But in all seriousness, their starting core doesn't have the playoff experience. But what I will say that the team has its favor is that it does have a championship winning coach in Mike Brown. I know that he was an assistant coach, but he knows his stuff. He knows what he's doing. And I'm looking at a team like the Clippers right now, who are currently in sixth place, and who they would be playing. Like, do you honestly expect the Clippers to have that playoff experience? Those guys can't even stay healthy. And, obviously Paul George is hurt and is not going to be playing this year. But is Kawhi Leonard going to want to play, or is he going to dip out anytime there's some adversity? That's the real question that I want to know from everybody. Like, clearly Kawhi Leonard is running from the smoke of all these teams because he continues to get hurt and continues to avoid playing. And so, I want to look at how many games he's played this year. So let's look. Kawhi. He's played 49 games this season. Like, to me, like, this Clipper team isn't going to be anything if he's not playing. And so, again, this all stipulates, James, if the Sacramento Kings are playing against the Clippers. Now, if they're playing the Warriors, then I agree with you. If they're playing, even the Pelicans, I think would be okay, because I don't know, Zion is not back yet, I don't believe. Lakers, they could potentially have a matchup there, but I think the Clippers are their best matchup if they want to move on to the next round. So let's see what happens from here on out. But with that being said, thank you once again for joining us here on The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. Hope you guys enjoy your Sunday with some great NBA basketball, some great NCAA Women's Championship game on tonight. Iowa versus LSU, Ric Flair versus Caitlin Clark. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch, so make sure you tune in at some point. But with that being said, thank you once again for joining us here on The Charge. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. All that stuff helps us out tremendously, and I hope to see everybody here next week at the same time, where we're probably going to talk with Pete about NBA playoff awards and the NBA playoffs, who's going to win, who's going to lose, and I'm excited to see that going on. Anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining, and I'll catch everybody on the next video. Peace out, everybody, and James, Nuggets Warriors, yes, sir. Anyway,